Kia ora everyone, welcome to These Guys Got Next, our NBA basketball podcast where we dissect the NBA and deliver our takes and analysis from the bench. I'm Elijah Fa'afiu, he's Ravindu Pathirana. Ravi, again, let's just check in with each other. How's everything on your end, mate?
Yeah, man, loving it. It's winding down summertime. It's still bloody hot out in Sydney, but no, looking forward to this. Looking forward to this episode. How about you?
Good. You can probably tell my background, maybe that I'm in a new location. I'm in Wellington this weekend for a music festival, good old homegrown, where a lot of our New Zealand music acts come together and perform over a couple of days. But I always have time for the pods, so it's great to come on and chat NBA with you. And yeah, let's just get stuck into it. Start of the week, we had the MVP duel back to back, SGA versus Jokic. I may have jumped the gun a bit and said that this was going to decide the MVP award, but I think it's clear after the two games that I am still confused as ever as to who actually is the outright MVP. OKC drew first blood when he won 27-103. SGA put on a 40-point performance, outstanding. And then game two, Jokic and Denver got their revenge, winning 140 to 127. Rav, what did you make of that whole 48-hour sequence between OKC and Denver? Was it clear to you who the standout MVP candidate was?
I mean, both games are pure entertainment. I'm not gonna lie. So there's a few interesting facts that I'll get into shortly. But I don't mean in my mind, MVP is definitely Jokic. I think just the fact, and I mentioned this last episode as well. It's just how he impacts the game and more than just scoring. Um, it's just ability to impact the game in so many different ways just sets him apart. And like I think I was watching this video the other day, and it took into the fact that if Jokic was taken out of the rotation versus SGA was taken out of the rotation for both the teams, and the Thunder still ended up being like a 2 or 3 seed in the West compared to the Nuggets. They were like last, dead last with their people around him. So I know that shows to me that Jokic is the most valuable player for that team, and yeah, the most valuable player in this league. So he's got my vote. That's for sure. Mm.
I'm still going to ride the SGA train, just based purely on this season. Yes, your argument does make sense because Jokic's season has been outstanding. Like, who averages a triple double? There's a very short list. One of them is his teammate Russell Westbrook, and Jokic is on the verge of that. I think Mike Malone probably had one of the better arguments I've seen around who should win the MVP, where he pretty much said if you didn't know that Jokic won 3 MVPs and you put player A and player B on paper, the guy that's averaging the triple double and leading the league, or is in top three in three of the statistical categories, he would win MVP 10 times out of 10, which is fair because voter fatigue, unfortunately, is part of MVP voting. People don't really like seeing the same guy win over and over again. It's
Which
happened
I
in the
think is
past.
bullshit.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna put it out there, man. Like, why not give it to the best player? Like, if you're dominating, why give it to this guy needs a chance? We're not. It's just competition. This is sport. There's only one winner at the end of the day. They don't give the championship to the most deserving team. It's to the team that won. I know that's just my thing. Like yeah, it's stupid. It's really dumb. I don't agree with it at all. It should just be given to the best. Like Jokic could win the next 5 MVPs if he averages, if he just keeps doing the amazing things. It should be given to the best player. Period.
for sure. And I
Yeah.
think Jokic, we mentioned this last week, how he's already in the discussion around all-time greats. Like, he's put himself in that conversation. You look back in the past in NBA and other players who have won MVP, like LeBron. Does LeBron deserve more MVPs than he's currently won in his career? You could make an argument. Kobe, does Kobe deserve more MVPs than he's had in his career? There's probably been incidences in the past where the odd random player. Well, I say random, but I guess for that season they stood out, like a Derrick Rose or a Steve Nash,
Sid
who
Nash,
won
yes.
yeah
Yeah.
who won MVP titles, and those were largely debated. And I think this is the same thing that we're sort of heading towards here with SGA, where the voters want to see someone different, someone fresh win the MVP. Because if it wasn't SGA, it would have been a Luka, it would have been an Ant Edwards. Like, it doesn't matter who was up against Jokic. That argument was was always going to be there. So that's sort of how the MVP race is going at the moment. And yeah, I guess one moment that did stand out to me, I believe it was the second game where Mark Daigneault brought out the permanent sub strategy to try and stop Jokic. You got all these coaches trying to figure out ways to stop Jokic, and Mark Daigneault chipped in here with his little creative idea. Did you catch that? What did you make of that
Yeah, man,
moment?
the permanent sub strategy he called it. But yeah, it's again gives more credit to Jokic and like in my opinion anyway solidifies him as the MVP just because coaches are thinking outside the box because you can't simply stop him within the dimensions of the court, so they have to come up with certain things. Um, like permanent sub strategy was cool, but unfortunately, like looking deeper into it, it violated some of the sections of the law because Dylan Jones was a player. He was in his warm up kit, and all Mark Daigneault was trying to do was just stop the end zone passes that Jokic was doing.
He just
To
loves to
stop.
play fast. Jokic just loves to play quick. So usually
Yeah.
when the other team scores, Jokic usually signals to the ref to give him the ball real quick so he can play fast. And Dagenham tried to slow him down with that, with Dylan Jones sort of just standing there. Great work, great workout for Dylan Jones there, just to sort of stand by the.
I think it was a minute and a half non-stop where he was just standing there, which is yeah, interesting. But yeah, I mean, well done to Mark Dagnall to come up with certain things, and there was moments where he was arguing with the ref as well, just to apparently the refs were giving him the ball like too quickly, as well. So there's a whole I guess I put my tinfoil hat again. There's a whole thing kind of going on that side too, where Jokic gets the ball and he's already making the plays, and I think Aaron Gordon was the wide receiver at the end zone. So yeah, we will see how or what other creative decisions coaches make to try and stop Jokic.
For sure, and you can guarantee that a lot of coaches are going to do that come playoff time as well. Speaking of playoffs and speaking of a potential finals matchup, we had the Thunder take on the Celtics this week in Boston. OKC came out with the win, 118 to 112 to secure their playoff spot. SGA with 34 points, his 60th straight game scoring 20 plus points. So that is, I guess, an argument for SGA winning the MVP in terms of what he's done in the scoring department this season. And I think Chet Holmgren stood up really well in this contest, 23 and 15 from him, especially with Jalen Williams out as well. And I think come playoff time, OKC is going to need Chet to stand up if it comes to a situation where Williams is hurt. Because I think we saw in that second OKC Denver game when Jalen Williams got hurt during that game, and no one could really step up behind SGA to create their own shots and create their own scoring, which is, I think, part of why Denver came out on top in that contest. But yeah, I think Shai having his imprint on the league, and he made that known after the contest, right, Rav?
Yeah, man, like imprint on the city of Boston. Even had the Batman esque signal in TD Garden, and also a couple of buildings that was floating around. What do you make of the logo?
I'll be honest, I haven't. It was one of the first times I'd seen the logo. I guess stylistically, it's very SGA. If you know the way that he dresses and his fashion sense, that suits how Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is. Yeah, I thought it was fine. I think it was real cool to have it imprinted on the buildings in Boston, Bruce Wayne style. That was a cool moment. Yeah.
For sure, man. I mean, yeah, it's just putting a stamp on it, right? Which is unbelievable, especially in the opponent's building, especially like historic place like Boston.
Well, the
So
defending champions building. What a way to make a statement.
yeah, yeah, I love it. So let's see if this sparks up a potential rivalry as well.
I mean, we don't even know if the Celtics are going to reach the finals because you got the Cavs standing in their way, and the Cavs still going strong. Had another 15-game win streak currently, as of recording. Their second one, I believe, of the season of at least 15 games won. They're looking on track for 70, rather, as you picked last week. We'll see how it goes. But I think I wanted to bring up the Cavs because Donovan Mitchell, he plays without contacts. And he put out a quote this week that he usually sees three rims because of his blurriness. But then when he does wear contacts, he claims he can't hit a shot, which I sort of I sort of see where he's coming from because I wear glasses as well sometimes. I guess the only difference is that I still miss with or without contacts or glasses. Um, I think LeBron just what was it LeBron that said just aim for the middle one or something like that, right?
Just got to take on that advice, I think that's what you got to do. Maybe you'll make a couple.
Fair enough. Yeah, you can't miss. There's three
Yeah,
rims there.
exactly.
I guess in terms of the Cavs, like for some reason, I still feel like we're at the back end of the season, and the Cavs probably aren't being brought up as much as some of these other teams around them. Do you still feel as though they're being disrespected, or do you feel like they've earned that respect and they're rightfully being spoken about by everyone?
I think there is an element of disrespect in there. Um, Partly because the way the media operates. You only hear about the Lakers, the big name teams like the Warriors. Like it doesn't make sense why these guys aren't getting a spotlight. Like these are the teams. I think it was someone mentioned this in one of them. I can't remember exactly who. Maybe ESPN or someone. But they made a point to have coverage across all teams, and especially teams that are doing great. Like the Cavs are a prime example. OKC is another example. Like not a lot of like spotlight on the team as a whole. On Shea, yes, but not team as a whole. But yeah, you can just I think they are getting disrespected because they deserve more coverage, and it comes down to partly maybe even like the SGA OKC thing. There's no solidified superstar
Hmm.
in that team. There's four guys who are playing extremely well and they mesh well together. Fifth even, we're going to add DeAndre Hunter to that list. Um, but it's just no one person stands out in this thing. Which again isn't a bad thing if all five of these guys are playing really well. Like, and if they end up winning a chip, like perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is that the Cavs with this current core haven't made it past the second round in the playoffs. So I think there's a bit of reservations around that. Like, is this going to be like a maybe like a Utah Jazz a few years ago when they had Donovan Mitchell again being brought up, Rudy Gobert, and that team topped the Western Conference, but then they didn't do too well in the postseason. So I think any critics that are sort of waiting for the Cavs to sort of stumble come playoff time, especially when they come up against a Boston or come up against the Knicks. But they've got a great squad, and they're led by Donovan Mitchell, who I'm going to make the call right now. I think he makes all NBA first team. He has to. I think SGA is in, Jokic is in, Giannis is in, Tatum is in.
Yeah.
Who takes that fifth spot, which will be a guard spot?
Hmm.
And I think Donovan Mitchell has been one of the best guards. He's just not getting the credit that he deserves. So for me, I'm just going to make that call right there. But the Cavs, hopefully they get 70. They can put the NBA and the world on notice. So we'll see how everything goes there. Quite a few game winners this week, a few exciting ones actually, which is why we're going to talk about all of them. Rob, I'll let you pick which game winner you want to yarn about first and which one I guess stood out to you.
I think I'm gonna go for the Tyrese Halliburton, the 4 point play, to win the game. And man, that was just like watching it on replay again and again. It's just the way that the play was constructed. That's unbelievable. Like shout out to Rick Carlisle as well. Like man's just took a page out of a football playbook,
Yeah,
and ran it. And Tyrese tried it. I think last season or earlier this season as well, but and didn't end up working. But yeah, shout out to them for making this home run play work. But I think the funniest moment out of this is it was against the Bucks, mind you, and we see Darvin Ham in the corner where Tyrese took the three hands in his pockets, just doesn't help himself. you can't, you can't do much against that man. Like it's tough, but yeah, shout out to Tyrese, man. He's coming back in the Pacers in the time of need for the Pacers, especially come postseason. So yeah, it's great to have the floor general back.
for sure. And I think the Pacers, we'll probably talk about this down the line, but the Pacers are a team that really picked things up as of late in the Eastern Conference, and they're lurking around that top four. But yeah, that was a great statement win against a team that they also, I guess, in the same bubble with in the Bucks, who are competing for that top four spot. But great play, great crossover between football and basketball, and great game winner from Halliburton. Kawhi Leonard, our guy, with his own game winner this week, left hook against the Kings in overtime. He wasn't actually playing well in this game. Like he ended up with 17 points, but he still made the play that countered. Had Keegan Murray on initially defending him, tried to go right, but then Jake LaRavia comes across, so he was forced to go left, and then pops up, does a little left hand hook slash floater, um, and Valanciunas and Keon Ellis are coming to help as well, and still made it. Bounced off the rim. We've seen that in the past, and then it goes in, and that was only his second ever buzzer beating game winner. You know the first,
against your favorite team.
not anymore, but the rap the Raptors Sixers game seven, the classic, the all time one of the all time great
Yeah.
buzzer beating wins. So great for Kawhi there, and I guess great for his confidence when he's trying to ramp back up from all the injuries he's had. And I guess Mikal Bridges got the double bang treatment this week from Mike Breen against
Elite
the
company.
Trailblazers.
Yeah, man.
Very
I
elite
mean,
company.
awesome. Yeah, yeah. Like, who would have thought Mike Breen would be, commentating a Blazers Knicks game? Like, not necessarily a really high profile game over the Blazers playing in there, but yeah, man. Shout out to them. Mikal Bridges came through. A lot of comments. I don't know if you noticed, like when the House of Highlights or I think ESPN maybe put that up, or even the NBA page put it up. A lot of comments going about how it was a potential travel or a carry even. But no, looking at it, he got the feed, two steps, picked up the dribble, and then off he went. So yeah, I just want to put that to rest. But yeah, man, hell of a game. Similar, I guess, history does repeat itself because there was a game previously where the Nets Hawks had 43 lead changes. This game had 42 lead changes, and both games ended up being a game winner by Mikal Bridges, which was pretty cool. But yeah, that's on the Knicks as well. Just on that, like Mikal Bridges again brought up that point about how the starters are being pushed too hard by Tom Thibodeau. Like they got a decent bench, and at least have a bench that needs to show out as well. Like you can't just have these guys playing 5-10 minutes a game, which doesn't help their confidence or doesn't help them get into rhythm. Which especially they're going to need going into the playoffs. So yeah, I don't know if you've seen that or if you've what you made of that.
Yeah, I mean, Mikal Bridges makes a very good point. I mean, this has been the biggest criticism of Tom Thibodeau as a coach is that he just runs his starters into the ground. And I'm glad, we don't even know if those reports are true or not of Mikal and Thibodeau having those yarns, but he does need to start relaxing the minutes a little bit, especially one, Jalen Brunson being out at the moment. So he kind of has to play more minutes to like a Miles McBride or other guards in that rotation. And two, with the playoffs around the corner as well, you want your starters in the best shape possible because they're going to play those big minutes anyway. So there's really no need to run them into the ground. They're currently third in the West. I think the Bucks and the Pacers are lurking behind them, which they're probably going to be wary of. But yeah, it's a balancing act, and the great coaches know how to make that balancing act. So big task for Tom Thibodeau. In terms of, well, actually, yeah, one more thing on the Bridges thing. He did save Josh Hart's
Yeah.
behind because the Knicks were up one, and Hart committed a lane violation on the inbound, so it was a turnover to the Blazers. Blazers would go on to score an and one through Denny Avdia, putting the Knicks down two before Bridges' game winner, and it was actually Josh Hart who fouled Avdia on the and one. So I think Josh Hart, a round of beers, is going to be coming Mikal Bridges' way by through the wallet of Josh Hart. So he's probably counting his lucky stars there. In terms of our big Kiwi, our old mate Stephen Adams, had a little bit
Homegrown,
of a
speaking of.
scuffle this week. He was ejected, which we don't really see often with Stephen Adams. What did you make of that whole incident? And yeah,
I mean, accidental headbutt, man, from Adams. It's not gonna lie. But yeah, it's
I
weird
mean,
that
brushed
seeing.
his nose. Like there was no need for Plumlee to react.
No, no, definitely not. I think like I don't know. We see Steven Adams as the guy who breaks up the fights, not really gets into one because he just like picks the biggest dude around and just throws him aside, or he's this immovable object. But yeah, I think I just didn't like the fact that he was ejected. No, not a fan. But anyways, like Steven Adams and Mason Plumlee when he was at the Nuggets, right? He helped him
Yeah, they
get
got a bit
up,
of
and
history.
yeah, but a little bit of history. But yeah, I think this, this standard scuffle didn't help the Rockets though, adding to their tally of ejections throughout the season, which is the highest in the league with 7 so far. Um, but yeah, that's my kind of 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the history you brought up, like Adams pretty much saved Plumlee from like a terrible, like he could have fallen on his head or his neck in that Thunder Nuggets game back in 2018. So I guess 7 years on, that's how Plumlee repays Steven Adams by overreacting to
Mm,
a bit of nothing really.
mm,
And then in terms of the ejections, yeah, the Rockets lead the league in 7. And I was going through all the players who have been ejected this season. The most famous one was, or the most notable one was the Amen Thompson slamming Tyler Hero to the ground
mm,
one. But I'm surprised to see that Dylan Brooks isn't one of the players who's been ejected this season. Pretty much everyone else in that main core,
mm.
Amen, Van Vliet, Green, Shingun. I don't even know what Shingun would have gotten ejected for. And then Steven Adams. But Dylan Brooks is clean. He's the good boy of the group.
That's yeah, that's a first.
Anyway, we'll move on. Bit of reports or rumors this week that Dallas and Dallas's good mate Nico Harrison is interested in pairing Kevin Durant with Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis. And another report that the Suns would be looking for 3 firsts and possibly a young player in a trade for KD. I guess, can you see this trio, if it happens, working at all?
No man, who's gonna facilitate the playmaking? That's my thing, right? Like that's the biggest question. Like Kyrie is scorer as a primary, I'd say, is a 2 guard, but not enough to be like a floor general in a sense. KD has some playmaking, but again, more of a scorer. AD, same thing. Um, that's my biggest concern. Again, age, injuries. There's all of these little factors that come into play. Like Kyrie's out with ACL. Who knows when he'll be back? Like we mentioned last season, KD is 35, 36, and AD is just a walking hospital, unfortunately. Um, but yeah, I just don't see. I just don't see this even working out. To be honest, like if Nico Harrison can turn around like your franchise cornerstone, why would people trust to be under his leadership?
Yeah, true. And the Mavs are going to have to fork out some pretty heavy hospital bills if they're going to have those 3 in the same on the same team. We've seen in the past KD and Kyrie link up in Brooklyn. That didn't exactly work out. And then yeah, the Anthony Davis factor as well. But obviously, when they're all 3 are healthy, great
Oh
trio on
yeah,
paper. But it's
absolutely.
just you just can't bank on that these days, unfortunately. It was great to see KD go up against the Grizzlies this week. He had a bit of back and forth. Who would have thought Cam Spencer would be talking smack to Kevin
Yeah.
Durant, and then Desmond Bain going nose to nose? Oh, geez, it was just a great duel throughout. Unfortunately, the Suns are still being crap this season, and it doesn't look like things are going to turn around anytime soon. We could pretty much I feel like we could write them off the way things are going. But the Grizzlies, they're still fighting. And I mentioned last episode that the Grizzlies were struggling. They must have heard me because I think they're on a winning streak now. But yeah, good on them. Actually, I think the Bucks as well. Sort of, I may have jinxed them a little bit because I said they were going well, and now
Yeah,
they're on a losing streak. So, my bad, guys. Hey,
yeah.
the power of the podcast, you know.
Love it,
Anyway,
love it.
any other observations that stood out to you, Rav, before we
Uh,
finish things off?
yeah, I mean, there was a few things. First of all, shout out Steph, 4,003s. Got a new nickname from the fans, Mr. 4K, which is pretty cool. And he's 873s ahead of second place, James Harden. And
Insane.
also shout out to James Harden, man. He's having a hell of a season at 35, still doing his thing, and the Clippers are doing well too. So I just want to point that out. Um, Look, I was doing the research for the week and came across this very interesting video off the back of Jokic's 30-20-21 game, 30-20-20 game. Um, the ESPN crew, or the NBA crew on the Tuesday crew, yeah, they had a segment in there, which is like a March Madness bracket for the best ever stat line. And I don't know if you've seen if you have you come across that video. No.
No.
So they had this all these stat lines like Kobe's 81, World's 100, Book's 71, all these like great stat lines. Like you'd think Jokic 30, 20, 20 would make it into the top four, into the finals even of the one of the greatest stat lines in NBA history. Didn't make it out of the first round. Like, and it came at the expense of Giannis's 54 and 14 in the NBA finals. So I don't know, man. This is the media just doesn't help themselves in terms of the trajectory they're going in. Um, yeah, it seems like they just do stuff for clicks and views. Potentially could be because it's definitely draws
It
reactions
could,
out of passionate fans like myself.
yeah, yeah, it could be like a context thing as well, because I think some of those, I imagine some of those stat lines were in the finals or in playoff series, which fair, that would be a lot more memorable than a random regular season game where Jokic shot 30, 20, and 20. As a stat line on its own, it's great. But then I guess if you ask the normal fan, oh, who was that stat line against?
Hmm.
Like, I don't think a lot of people would be able to, even though that just happened last week, I don't think a lot of people
Yeah.
would remember compared to a Giannis closeout game against
Hmm.
the Suns, because that was the year they went on to win the chip.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think just a bit of context there.
Hmm.
Sorry, that's just me standing up for my media buddies. So anyway, I guess other news: De'Aaron Fox is out for the season, so I think we can pretty much say the Spurs are officially tanking.
Yeah.
Great reason: tendon damage in his left pinky. So I guess that was
Oh.
enough to justify ruling him out for the season. They were probably looking for a way to rule Fox out, given that the season's already over with Wemby sidelined himself. But yeah, it's official. De'Aaron Fox is out for the season. Paul George is on the trade block, so his dream season or dream campaign in Philly looks like it could be over. I just don't know who would trade for him. Like, can you see anyone sort of making a move and taking on that big contract?
No, I don't want any team to have the burden of PG's contract and his injury and like health being part of something else to be concerned about other than the financials. Um, so I know Atlanta and Golden State have shown some sort of interest, but I don't think it's especially Golden State Warriors. Like they've got Jimmy Butler in there, so I don't know why they need another two-way player. Especially Kuminga's developing nicely as well. So why would they pay this much an exuberant amount for a two-way player who's declining? But I don't. Quentin Grimes got traded to the Sixers, and he's having a hell of a stretch. Had four 30-point games compared to PG's three 30-point games. They got Quentin Grimes and gave up Caleb Martin. So what do you reckon they're going to get for PG?
Jeez. I mean, I don't even know if he gets a first round pick in return. Maybe just the one, like a late first or something, and then you give up a couple of middle of the road players. Like, I think his value's dropped big time this season alone. Like, if these trade talks happened last season when he was still on the Clippers, yeah, he'd get a decent haul. But I think he's sort of tanked so much this season, which is unfortunate to see. But that just comes with getting older, and yeah, you're just not the same player as you were 5, 10 years ago, unfortunately. And that's the phase where PG's on at the moment. In terms of other news, the New Orleans Pelicans are going to head over to Australia, play a couple of exhibition games against some NBL teams. That will be pretty exciting. I just wonder whether the whole team's going to play or not, because I would love to go and watch Zion in person. That would be insane. But whether Zion decides to make the trip will be quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, fingers crossed that he does. Maybe we could both make the trip across there and watch a game, do a bit of live reporting, possibly.
How good.
Wait a minute, yeah, be unreal. But no, should be a good time. Speaking of the NBA, or NBL rather, I just saw a post this morning. One of the guys one of the Sydney Kings got pinged for cocaine in his system, and he's suspended for a month. So yeah, interesting.
That's Yeah, that was Xavier Cooks, who
Mm,
was a former Washington Wizard. So he's not even on the team anymore, but the Wizards still catching strays. Rough,
Mm.
but hey, is what it is. I think another team, like we'll talk about the Pacers down the line. I think another team we need to keep an eye on is the Timberwolves.
Mm.
Since Julius Randle's come back, they've been on a nice little win streak. And I think Randle's starting to find his feet a little bit in the squad, and he's especially standing up with his playmaking too. So that's something to keep an eye on. There's always a couple of these teams down the stretch before playoffs who sort of make a run at the right time, and the T Wolves could be that team in the Western Conference. So just something to keep an eye out on there. And if there's nothing else, Rav, we might as well just get stuck into the quickfire.
Let's do it.
Cool. I will ask first question. So here we go. Three, two, one. Rav, this week marked 5 years since the NBA was shut down due to COVID. What's your all-time favorite game in the NBA bubble?
I'm going to say Denver, Utah, game seven on a Conley game winning attempt. Eli, outside of Zion, Deontay, CJ, which Pelican are you excited to see in Melbourne?
We'll go Trey Murphy, especially if he's going to catch half-court 180 lobs
Ooh,
like he did this week.
360, make it.
360, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Rav, what's your name your top three MVP candidates for the next 5 seasons?
I'm going to have to go Luca, Shea, and Tatum.
Not
Eli,
Jokic?
for the next 5 seasons, probably not. Yeah. Who has the worst NBA nickname of all time?
Damon Jones once called himself the world's greatest shooter or the greatest shooter in the world, and you're probably like, who? So that's my argument. How about you? Worst NBA nickname?
I'm gonna have to go a little bit more recent. Anthony Edwards being called the abortionist after all of this.
So I just don't get it. Anyway, game of the week, Rav. What's your game of the week?
I'm going Magic Rockets. How about you?
I'm going Nuggets, Warriors, especially with the hot streak they're on, and that is time. Rav, again, thank you so much for joining me this week, and thank you for you guys for tuning in. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Spotify. You know where to find us. These guys got next. Until then, we got next, and Matiwa.